Hey, what's up guys? Dr. Reeves here. Time for another YouTube video about neurology stuff. Today's thing is about fainting. How do we faint? And sort of how to think about that whole process. Now, fainting is, very simply, it's a result of not enough blood flow to the brain. So we call the amount of blood going up to the brain, we call cerebral perfusion pressure. But really it's just how much blood is getting pumped to the brain. If it's not enough, down we go, because the brain wants to shut down. Okay, next, you have to actually a little bit understand what is blood pressure. And I love, when I'm teaching medical students and other doctors, quizzing them, like, what's the formula for blood pressure? And they usually kind of give you that, there's a formula? Oh yeah, kind of look. Basically, it's A times B times C equals blood pressure. Now, before you get all weird and think there's going to be a math lesson today, you don't have to do any calculations, so go with me. So A times B times C. A is heart rate. How many times per minute does your heart beat? B is how much volume is squeezed out of the heart with each stroke. So we call that stroke volume, oddly enough. And C is how much resistance the heart is beating or pumping blood out against. We call that systemic vascular resistance, or SVR for short. Formula is quite simple. So in order for blood pressure to go down, one of those three things has to go down, or maybe more than one. Now, the middle one, stroke volume, is actually the least likely to go down. Now, stroke volume can change if there's certain kinds of heart problems, like somebody's in the middle of having a heart attack or something like that, their stroke volume may go significantly down. But on a day-to-day basis, that's usually not the cause of somebody fainting. So really, mostly what I'm worried about is heart rate, we'll skip over stroke volume, and resistance. So one of those two is usually the culprit. Sometimes both, but usually one more than the other. So, obviously, if the heart rate goes down a lot, or the heart kind of pauses for a few too many seconds, we go down. We don't have enough perfusion pressure, we don't have enough blood going to the brain, and our brain shuts down, and so our motor systems shut down, and down we go. If the fainting happens with no warning, and particularly if the fainting happens when someone is sitting down or lying down, it is much more likely that it's a problem of the heart rate slowing down. If the fainting happens really only when somebody is standing upright, and the longer the kind of build up to the fainting it is, oh, I'm getting lightheaded, oh, I'm getting sweaty or clammy or hot or cold or whatever, and that's building up over 3, 4, 5 minutes, it's much more likely that the problem is systemic vascular resistance. So you can imagine then the questions that we ask when we're trying to figure out why somebody has started to faint. Now, the systemic vascular resistance going down, or the heart rate going down, which causes the blood pressure to go down and then you go down, that's a mechanism. This isn't a description of here's the list of all the diseases that can make your heart suddenly slow down or suddenly stop for a few seconds. Or here's all the diseases and conditions that lower your systemic vascular resistance. I'm going to talk about a few of the common ones, but we can't go over all of them. So on the heart side, some people get faulty wiring in their heart, where just like any kind of pump, it's gotta do its thing, and it has some wiring. And if the wiring kind of gets a little dodgy, and for some reason the wiring kind of takes a break, and the pump takes a break, well then you take a break. Sometimes people will actually have the opposite of the heart slowing down. It'll be the heart speeds up really so fast it can't really pump effectively, and so it's not really putting a lot of blood out with each one. And that heart rate problem can make somebody faint. It's a little less common to have a fast rhythm causing fainting than a slow rhythm, but it does happen. On the other side, the systemic vascular resistance side, there's a whole list of things. Some of them are drugs. Now remember, that resistance is caused by the blood vessels in our legs and our arms and various places squeezing down and making it a little harder for the blood to be pumped through. So that creates kind of a back pressure, if you will. Well, if you have drugs that relax those blood vessels, well, then the resistance goes down, so the blood pressure goes down. And that's how some blood pressure medicines work for high blood pressure. Just like some for high blood pressure slow down the heart, some increase or decrease the systemic vascular resistance. And if you take too much, well, your blood pressure gets too low. There are other conditions where systemic vascular resistance is too low. For example, people who don't drink enough. There are other diseases and conditions that affect systemic vascular resistance. Peripheral neuropathy is one of them. And if you think that might be going on, I got a video on that. Syncope, or fainting, as we call it, syncope in medical term, sometimes is confused with seizures. So if you're on the YouTube channel, Andrew Reeves Neurology, you can see there's a whole lot of seizure-related videos, and go over there. So, in summary, blood pressure goes down, then we go down. Blood pressure is heart rate times stroke volume, which doesn't usually change, times resistance. In order for blood pressure to go down, one of these other three factors has to go down. And that's what you want to ask your doctor to investigate with you if you have a problem with fainting. You guys have a great day. Thanks for watching. That was awful.